Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Ben Trygstad, who's a business insurance advisor with Trailstone Insurance Group. Ben, welcome back to the program.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you because I know today we want to talk about how you guys work with business owners and more importantly, how business owners can make sure that they are getting the best coverages and the most streamlined setup, as well as if, God forbid, a claim happens. So I just really think that this is something really important for businesses to keep in mind because, you put one wrench in the works and now they're up, wasting time, and time is money. So give us a little bit of a background here on why this is so important for your clients who are business owners.
Yeah, great question, Mike. And ultimately, I think you and I both are based in Colorado.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if people are watching the news, but there was a unheard of, unprecedented fire that happened in December of 2021. Over 1,000 homes were burned by this Marshall fire. So yeah, it's very, very important for you to go over your insurance coverages to make sure that, before a fire even happens, what is that promise? Because that's what insurance is a promise to pay or to defend you in a lot of cases when bad things happen, right? When there's a break, a boom, or a bust, when somebody's getting hurt or something like that. So if you don't have those up to date or correct, you're just buying an expensive piece of paper.
Yeah.
And so that's what we always want to make sure of is that we understand what is and is not covered on this 120-page booklet that is called your insurance policy.
Now you bring up a really interesting point because the 120-page booklet, give or take a page or two, that is what comes in the mail, and it's like, oh my word. I don't know what to do with this thing. So that is now a great point. When here is this business owner that's going to go, okay, I just need help. Don't give me a 120-page book. What do you do to help streamline and help it be really, really succinct in even starting the process for getting quotes?
Great question. So we always want to start with a phone call, what we talk about as a phone interview, which really just, not only makes puts the client at ease and make sure that we're ensuring the things that they want to ensure, but also they're interviewing us. They're wanting to make sure that we understand their business inside and out, because there's so many times where you'll talk to somebody on the other line and you'll go, you know what? I don't think you're understanding what I'm doing. In insurance, it's so important to understand what your business does, because there's so many different exclusions and coverages that, every business is so unique. You want to add the right coverages you need, but you don't also want to include coverages that you'll never have a claim in, right? So that's super important whenever you look at business insurance.
And I think that sometimes people just give me a form, I'll fill it out. I'm too busy for that. But the problem with that mindset is when you don't have that human connection, human touch, that real person, thinking outside the box, going, oh, you mentioned this. Do you guys ever do whatever that might be? And you, with your experience, would be able to kind of look deeper in and go, ooh, I might be able to find a way to either protect you a little bit more because maybe that's a gap, or maybe save you some money. So talk a little bit about a time maybe you can even remember where you've gone through that phone interview and you've uncovered something that maybe you or the prospective client didn't even think of. And lo and behold, it came up in conversation and it's like, that's an important piece.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll give you a few analogies and stories actually from a phone call I had earlier this morning. But yeah, we're not the 15 minutes could save you 15%.
Whatever, yeah.
We're not that type of company. We want to actually take the time with our clients and make sure you're properly insured. But for instance, we were talking with a contractor, a home builder this morning, and basically he was walking through what he expected to be covered on his own insurance policy. Well, lo and behold, he doesn't really know that, contractor's E&O was not added on his policy. So pretty much, if he built a deck, let's just say it was a deck, and there was a few code violations or something like that, where that deck had to be rebuilt, insurance policies don't cover for the general liability. There was no actual property that was damaged. Right. It was just built wrong, and there's nobody who was actually hurt. So normally,
but it was an error and it was an omission.
And you know what? The biggest thing is it hurts his pocketbook. There was a financial pain that happened with this client, right? And so the worst time to find out that there's no coverage for that is after he builds a deck that's incorrect, right? And so we talked about that. We said, well, how important is this coverage to you, right? Because sometimes people aren't going to see the value in having that, right? But some people are, and this client in particular did see that value, and so then we're adding that coverage to that policy.
So let me ask you a question on that. Mm-hmm. This was a phone call where he was talking about his current policy with whatever other company, and you were asking questions, and it was like, okay, well, tell me about your E&O, and he's like, what? And then you started thinking about, well, what if and what if and what if? Well, I think a lot of times with people, with whoever buying insurances, it's like, that's pretty unlikely that that's going to happen. So no, but the scenario that you just laid out, it's like, you know what? Do you have an employee? Do you think that they're perfect? I mean, so that's the kind of thing that it's like, that could really happen and maybe happen more than you would like. So that kind of additional coverage, that's a gap that person did not know was there until you brought it to their attention.
Right. And you'll also know that we're not somebody who's just going to be pushing every single coverage and saying, you know what, a meteor might have, hit your lawn or something like that. Right. We're not going to be trying to add coverage for every little thing, but you should at least know where the big gaps are in your policies, right? Whether that your equipment, when it's being transferred from one area to another, if there's any gaps there, and then if there is a gap, is that important to make sure that that's insured? So that's the type of questions we talk about. And ultimately, I have yet to have one policy where everybody's like, yep, that's exactly what I want, because people are at different stages of our business. When you first start a business, you have to stretch every possible dollar with your business, right? You have to become successful in a very short amount of time. And normally you don't have a lot of capital to go around. However, a business that's been in place for 10 years, normally they have a little bit more reserves to solve for those bad days and things like that. But they also want to ensure that there's no gaps in their insurance to where they could jeopardize this business that they've spent 10 years building. And so there's a huge difference from just the age of the exact same business. So businesses change every single day. And that's why it's so important to really follow up and make sure that your business insurance plan is growing or decreasing just like you wanted it to, that you actually got the program or the plan 3 years ago.
It's interesting you say that, because it reminds me of something totally non-business related, but like when you watch a movie and it's like, okay, I'm going to watch it again, and you pick up something new, or you read a book for a second or third time and you pick up a new nuance, and maybe it's something you just didn't notice before, but maybe you're in a different stage of life. And I read a lot of personal development books, and many times it's like, you know what, I read this book last year, now I'm reading it again, but this stands out because maybe something is going on personally or professionally that's different, and now I'm noticing something else. So I think that you cannot ever think, hey, I got coverage last year, or my current policies are good to go. Things can change. So maybe someone listening to this going, you know what, Ben, maybe let's just get a little quick checkup. Let's just make sure that I'm in the correct coverages for me. And so is there any ways, when you're talking to people, what are some ways that business owners can save money on their insurance, maybe without even changing their plan?
Great question there. So a lot of business owners don't even know that there are certain discounts or rate reductions, is how insurance companies call them, can be added to your business without even changing actually the coverage amount. Because insurance companies, what are they charging for? They're charging for your risk, the possibility of you getting into an accident or damaging somebody else's property or damaging somebody else's person, right? So if you actually have the time to create certain programs, which we work side by side with you to go, you know what, let's put in place an employee safety manual. Let's put in a closed-toed shoe policy for your employees, right? Let's have a designated medical provider to where we know if somebody gets hurt at their place of business, one of your employees, we know which hospital to go to. Those simple programs can actually add increasingly amount of discounts on your policy. And so that's something where there's no coverages that are changed. There's nothing really that, is going to be different with your policy. The only thing that's really changing is you are putting in that ounce of prevention. And I always say an ounce of prevention beats a pound of cure. So, it's a known, kind of saying that says that, for every $1 that you invest to workplace safety, you get $3 to $10 in hard costs, which is part of saving money on insurance, but also soft costs. So that's the upper side of $10 for every $1 that you invest, which is, just stopping the claim from ever happening in the first place, stopping that employee from ever getting hurt, or stopping that client or that that property damage. It's an insurance term for that accident happening in the first place.
That's a really interesting point, because you wouldn't think that just having a little emergency plan in place or a little safety protocol in place, like, oh yeah, we ought to do that, but we're busy. But hold up. It's not it doesn't take a lot of time. It certainly doesn't cost money, but it can save me money on my coverages. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even things that don't necessarily save you money, but they're super, super helpful. Just the other day, I was it was on a Saturday, and I get a call from he's a business owner. He's been running his business, a very successful business, for probably over 30 years. Okay. So he's been through a few insurance claims. He knows business, I would say, inside and out. He got into an auto accident. He's, was driving, hit some ice, and rear-ended a vehicle. Okay. When you're all flustered like that, you don't necessarily know what to say, what to do. What's the next steps? I mean, people can think of everything that's normal, in their mind. But then when you think of all that stress and adrenaline that's going through your system, you don't necessarily know what to do. And we always hand out a little folder that says, here's some things of what to do in the event of an auto accident, which is, call the police. Let's take some photos. So let's exchange information and things like that. But you know what? When all those things happen, that didn't happen. He's calling me and going, what do I do? What do I need to do? And he rightfully so, you're worried. And so we're always happy to answer those phone calls, answer those questions for you. But those things where we want to have those pamphlets and things like that, because you never think about those until an accident happens.
It made me think of something too that's really important. Number one, you got to call on what day here? Oh, Monday at noon? No, Saturday. And so you're there to support. And secondly, we've all gone through this before, but it's like, oh, look, our company's doing some new training. So we got to learn this new computer, software, this and that. So we're going to go through a half-day class, and then, okay, we're going to roll that out in 90 days. And you're like, in 90 days, I'm going to forget what button to hit. So like, to your point, you give, here's the pamphlet, and here's the steps, and here's this, and it's right here on this link. And, but when it happens, you just go, just call Ben.
Right.
What do I do?
Right.
That's huge.
And one thing is I will say that my work number goes to my cell phone and things like that, but don't, just because you call me on Saturday doesn't mean I'm always going to reply to it. But I feel like I needed to warn everybody about that and not set wrong expectations. But yes, we always want to be somebody who's able to walk you through on coverage expectations and then claim expectations and things like that. So people, that were unfortunately in the Marshall Fire, we already have been sending out pamphlets that say, hey, go through your home or go through your business and take a quick video of all of your personal belongings.
Yeah.
Because in the event of a claim, it's hard to tell what's a desk and what's a chair from ashes, right? And so those little things that, they take 15 minutes to do, they're going to save you on the back end, I'm guessing 24 hours of man hours of just trying to remember all of the stuff that you owned, your business owns, your personal property, of your own home and things like that. So those things are super, super important.
And that's a great idea. And, now more than ever, it's so much easier than it used to be, because maybe before you'd have to have this piece of paper you print it out and go and write down everything, or maybe you take pictures and have to have them developed. Well, these days, and, just as a matter of, letting you know that I already do what you just recommended, because when that Marshall fire happened, my house was within 5 miles of pre-evacuation. So we were sitting here going, okay. And literally that week when it happened, I was right around New Year's Eve. I had already had my year end kind of, prep things, personal development goals and things like that. But I had already put on there, do a video inventory of the house, because I thought it was a good idea. Well, that Marshall fire, now I'm going through the house and I'm just taking my phone, and you just slowly just pan, and you don't need to pause, because you know that if you needed that video, you just hit pause when the video is made. But those kind of tips, to me, what you just said for a business owner to go, you know what, if you can just make this plan, it could save you money. And, I'm here to support you. And, all you got to do is make this video, and if and when the need comes where that comes to fruition and it saves them heartache, maybe taking the video of your property, business and personal might save more than heartache, because it could actually document something where it's like, oh, I totally would have never remembered we had that. So that's such a huge thing. And while we're talking about claims, what are some other things that a business owner can do to make sure that, you have a smooth process? Because the time to figure things out is well before you're in the midst of it. It's ahead of time.
Great question. So right now, there is a claims agent shortage nationwide, and this is almost with every single company that you will be insured with. There's not a lot of claims agents. Now, hopefully that's going to change, but we want to help out to where that claim agent can get off of, whatever this claim is and on to the next. So it's sometimes realizing that and making that documentation process as easy as possible for them to say, okay, good, approved, and then move forward. So communication is so important, but also documentation, right? And having that information on hand. So it really depends on what the type of claim is. But ultimately, we always want to have a conversation via phone call and say, okay, what is expected? What's a nice to have? And what's a need to have when you actually, call and go through this claims conversation with this licensed adjuster is their term. For them. And then if you ever are having some communication issues or anything like that, or feel that things were just not handled properly, that's the nice thing of having a business insurance broker. Now, I would say that we're not licensed claim adjusters.
Sure.
We don't have that say, but we are something that is your advocate for if there's anything that's we believe is being mishandled on a claim, we can definitely help out. And 90% of the time, it's just, hey, why is my claims adjuster not reaching out to me? And so then we just call and we can tell them, hey, this is an issue. This is a priority for us, and you need to make sure that this claim gets handled in an appropriate manner. And so that's what we do with a lot of our claims.
Yeah, and I think that's a big point to keep in mind, because being local and being with a personal touch, and like the example where the guy calls and says, I was just going to wreck, what do I do? Even though it was at his fingertips, he could have figured out and found, and you'd already provided it. You are there to just guide the process. And people need to know that. People need to know that you're on the other end of the email or the phone, and you've got their back. So that's such a huge, important piece. And that's something that, an independent agent is able to really do. Of course, captured agents do it as well, but then in theory, and we're not mentioning names, but in theory, those, might throw you into an 800 number, and it's maybe not as personal, maybe it's not as fast, but being able to get right in touch with you locally, and the area, and the things to watch out for. To me, that's just such a big win for a business owner. So let's wrap up with what are some final thoughts you have on helping your business owners get through a claims process smoother and making sure that they feel taken care of.
I would say having the conversation before the claim happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because here's the thing: if you're not certain that your coverage is in place beforehand, it's the worst time to find that out, during a claim or after an accident has happened. So I think really the thing to bring home is an ounce of prevention will always beat a pound of cure. So those little steps that we can do right now before an incident happens, those are what's important, right? And there's tons of tricks that or tips and things like that we can talk about when the claim happens, right? When those things go through and how we can review those things. But really, it would always be better to just answer those questions of what is that going to be covered? Do I have enough property coverage for my business? Do I have the right and adequate general liability limits for my business if somebody was to get seriously injured on my property or during my course of business? And those things are easy to do. So those is what I would say is the most important there.
Well, I think it's so important just to know that you've checked off in your mind. You know what? I checked to make sure my coverages are there's no gaps, and I am prepared in the event of. And in fact, I've been watching. Is the time of this recording, the Olympics, 2022 Olympics are on, and there's a commercial running where this I don't even know who it is, but a famous musician or an actress is in the doctor's office, and the doctor comes in and says, "Okay, everything's great," and the message ended with, make sure you've got everything checked out and everything's good to go. And that's with your health as with your business, and your insurance coverages. So I really think that that's such a huge takeaway for people to consider and think about is just give you a call, get a second opinion, make sure you've got all the coverages you need and you're not exposed anywhere. If there's any gaps, fill them. And I just think that's such a huge service that you guys provide. What's the best way, Ben, that someone can reach out and connect with you and learn more about your program?
Oh, great question. So trailstoneinsurance.com is our website. You can just click on the Meet the Team and then click on Ben Trygstad. And so that's going to have a bio. It's going to have some information about myself. It's also going to have a little icon that you can actually schedule a time to talk if that's what you want, or kind of work from that. So that's probably the best way to reach me.
Excellent. And I will make sure to have that directly in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for coming on today, Ben. It's a real pleasure talking with you.
Perfect. Thanks again.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.